Hello, everyone. GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. This is a bonus episode. It is the recording of the live interview I did with Julian Holguin in Miami last week, the week before. What is time? Whatever it was, we did a live OPJ event in Miami. I interviewed Julian Holguin, and this is that recording. I am so excited for y'all to hear this. I had the most magical time. I posted about this a bit. Just the most magical time in Miami with all of you who turned out for it, and I could not be more grateful that you were there. The feedback has been really amazing so far, so it has definitely gotten me excited for the next events. On that front, the next event we are hosting is going to be Friday, April 28th in Austin, Texas. So that is dovetailing with Consensus. So if you are at Consensus and you are an OPJ holder, you will absolutely have the opportunity and should definitely reserve your ticket for this upcoming event. We will be announcing the guest for that event, I think this Wednesday. So Wednesday, April 12th, we will announce who the guest will be for that April 28th event. And starting Friday, April 14th, OPJ holders will start being able to reserve their seats to attend that event. The guest is freaking good, guys. I am so excited about this one. Oh, I wish I could just announce it right now, but I can't. So get stoked for that if you're going to be in Austin and you're an OPJ holder. Last couple of announcements. I mentioned this at the top of this episode. So at the top of this episode, you're going to hear the intro that I gave like on stage in Miami. So you'll hear me shout out our sponsors, which are Web3Sense, who you hear from, OpenSea, who you hear from, Realm, which is a crypto insurance provider that we use that sponsored the Miami event, Bombay Sapphire, Bacardi were one of our drink sponsors, Empathy Wines were another one of our drink sponsors. So just huge shout outs to everybody who made the event possible. And on the Empathy Wines front, we have some special announcements, which is that all OPJ holders are going to be getting a discount on Empathy Wine products. More on that to come. I say this at the top of this episode, but I'm repeating it here in case anybody misses it. And anybody who was at the event and got one of the POAPs at the Miami event will be entered into a raffle to win free cases of VFriends red wine from Empathy. So we're so grateful to Empathy for this broader partnership they're doing with us and such a fun way to reward folks who came out to the event and do what NFTs do best, right? Rewarding holders, fans, participants in things, extending IRL experiences, and in keeping with our cocktail hour theme. So really grateful to Empathy for that. Follow me on Twitter or follow us on Substack because we'll be announcing things about it on those two places. So Carly P. Riley or our Substack is Overpriced JPEGs so that you can make sure you're getting announcements if you are either an OPJ holder or if you attended the event and have the POAP. Okay, with all of that info, I think we're ready to go. I really hope you like this episode. Please tweet at us. Let me know what you think of this live environment and if you enjoyed it. And final thing. I think I've announced this before, but I do just want to make sure people know, if you are an OPJ NFT holder, we are tantalizingly close to you being able to redeem for your bottle of overpriced gin. There's been a couple delays on our side that I've talked about. Basically, if you are a spirits brand, you need to get your bottle label approved by regulators. And we had our bottle label rejected twice for minor things. We didn't phrase something quite right on the back and things like that. We have now finally gotten the bottle label approved. So we are basically ready to go in terms of actually starting to ship out the bottles of gin. So stay tuned on that. We'll have news very soon. Thank you for everyone's patience. Okay, with that, it is time for the show. We're going to hear a word from Web3Sense and from OpenSea, who I just could not be more grateful for. Not only have they come in as year-long partners, basically, and sponsors for us on the podcast side, they've also come on to sponsor the whole Overpriced JPEGs Happy Hour Tour. So I am so grateful for both these teams and for Realm, who I'll mention in a minute, who sponsored this event, for just helping support creators and media in this space during a time when it's very turbulent and very weird to be an ad-supported business. So incredibly grateful to both teams. I'll introduce Steve in just a minute, but this is Jim Borger, who's the co-founder
CEO, yep,
of Web3Sense. He's going to say a few words on Web3Sense, but incredibly grateful. Incubated out of the Notre Dame computer science department. So, a bunch of nerds over there. And I'll hand it over to Jim to tell you a little bit more. Yep.
Thank you, Carly. And Jim Borger, CEO of Web3Sense. Really, really excited about our collaboration partnership with Carly and her amazing team at Overpriced JPEGs. They've been just a delight to work with. We've learned a ton from them. Hopefully you've provided a couple cool insights here and there for them to use too. But thank you all for coming. It's exciting, and like you said, in such a turbulent time to see ongoing belief and enthusiasm in this space. We certainly are in it for the long haul. And we're a blockchain analytics firm that provides insights on NFT and Web3 communities. We're particularly keen on helping any stakeholders understand the value of their communities, the liquidity that's present, the distribution of liquidity, the personas, whether people are more believers or holders, or whether they're more traders or flippers or stack and sellers. We've got all kinds of persona tags. And we do wallet ratings based upon whatever criteria that Carly and her team or any of you might have. And then from there, we just try to help people take care of, especially forthcoming projects, figure out anything that they need to on the pre-mint analysis, get their allow list sorted, get the right people invited into the community to build something of lasting value. And then after the mint, we can tell them, okay, what personas were present in the mint, and then how do we keep this, sustained support and growth thing going in the proper way. So anyway, I'll turn it back over to Carly. I'm very happy to meet all of you and talk to you afterwards. And if you're listening or watching after the fact, we're at web3cents.ai. Come tell us how to get in touch with you. Thank you, Carly.
Thank you. Here, I'm going to have you put that mic right over there. Oh, actually, pass it over to Stevie. This is Stevie on the OpenSea team. Folks here, I'm sure I don't need to introduce what OpenSea is, but again, I think you guys have been such an incredible partner, not just for me, but for this whole space. And I'm incredibly grateful that you exist and really are make this ecosystem exist. So give your spiel, which I'm sure will be much better than that, but thank you for everything, Stevie. Here, Sand, I want to make sure you're in camera, so, I guess you're in frame, yeah, you're good. Wherever you want to be.
Thank you. Definitely making me blush. Thank you for all the sweet words. It's been really a treat working with you and your team. We are all on the team, big fans of you and your brand. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Nice to meet y'all. I'm Stevie. I'm head of community at OpenSea. It's an honor to be able to be a sponsor of the event series, but also to introduce you and Julian. OPJ and and Doodles are two brands that we really care very much about and have a lot of gratitude for the impact that you guys are creating in the space. Quick shill on the OpenSea side. We've been the go-to secondary marketplace for NFTs for years now, but in case you're not aware, we are now offering the most robust set of tools for primary drops as well, meaning creators have a new trusted surface to more effectively tell the story of their collections, and collectors can mint upcoming drops directly on OpenSea as well. We're working with top brands, creators, different projects as partners to help bring new ideas to life. Also offering a turnkey solution for creators and brands who want to enter the space. You can learn more at opensea.io/partners. And we also just rolled out a self-serve primary drops tool for anybody that wants to do a primary drop. You can learn more at opensea.io/drops. With that, pass the mic back to you, Carly.
Well, I'm hooked up, so you can keep that. Woo! I've got my Britney mic here, I got my pop star mic, so I'm gonna break out in a little dance soon. Okay, final remarks just on my side, and then we'll bring Julian up. Obviously, a huge thank you to OpenSea and Web3Cents, you guys both just heard from. I also want to shout out Realm, who is a sponsor for this event. If you all aren't familiar with Realm is a crypto insurance company, right? Right way to say it. Emerging markets, okay, but we know for our purposes, hopefully they insure crypto companies. And not only are they a sponsor of this event, but we needed insurance for this event. And Realm is the reason we got insurance so quickly. So I can attest to the fact that their product works. So, you can come speak to their team after the event as well, after this. Who else do I have to shout out? Token Proof, who built our website and then, of course, enabled everything ticketing-wise. Fonz couldn't be here tonight, but huge fans of Token Proof and so grateful for them. Liquid Collections and Bacardi, the team over at Bombay, who is here providing drinks for us, which we were so grateful to. And Liquid Collections is my partner on the NFT and the gin that we're doing. So huge shout out to them. Empathy Wines, who provided our wine tonight and also has a fun Web3 tie-in because it's, of course, Gary V brand, whatever their tie all together is. Gary does everything, so it's always hard to know. And actually, a fun thing to announce to y'all tonight is, without being able to give away too many details, we're very grateful to Empathy Wines because all OPJ NFT holders will be getting a discount on Empathy products, which we'll be sending more information out about in the next couple of weeks or week probably. And then also for anyone here tonight, if you registered through Token Proof and you checked in through Token Proof, or if you got your POAP via IYK, we are going to be raffling off bottles of VFriends Red wine. So some select POAP holders will be getting free bottles of VFriends Red after this event. So thank you to Empathy, and thank you so much to you all for being here and having a reason for us to give away wine in the first place. So. And I should say this. This is a shameless plug, but it also serves this purpose, which is you can follow me on Twitter at Carly P. Riley, or the Overpriced JPEGs at Overpriced JPEGs, or subscribe to our Substack, because we'll be sending out information about the raffle for the free wine on those platforms. So you won't be able to hear about it if you're not following me or one of those accounts. Okay, lastly, let me see. Sorry, I got my notes here to make sure I get it all right. I do. Okay. Finally, I want to say thank you to Ampersand, which is this venue that we are in, which is amazing. Thank you to Event Factor, who is doing all of our tech right now. And then, of course, a huge, huge thank you to Julian Holguin himself, who I'm going to bring up in truly 1 second. Thank you for your patience, Julian. Julian, the whole Doodles team. And then I have to thank my OPJ holders, of course, and everybody who listens to this show, and the OPJ team who pulled this whole thing off. Callie Morton in the back is the hero of this event and of this whole tour, because none of this would have happened. If you liked the sandwiches, it was because of Callie. If you like anything that's happening tonight, it's because of Callie. So a huge shout out to my team and to Callie. And with that, I would love to welcome Doodle CEO Julian Holguin to the stage.
Thank you. Give a round of applause for Carly, by the way. Look at this. This is incredible. I've been doing events for a long time, and this is AAA.
Thank you. Well, this is my first event, and we can tell because I did not anticipate my wardrobe thing. So I did bring a little sweater. This was not the skirt for this. And we learned this, luckily, an hour before the event, and now I have this. Julian, I'm so excited to have you here. I want to kick off because I interviewed Jordan Castro, better known as Poopy, probably a year ago at this point on the podcast, I think over a year ago. And at that time, it was sort of novel to say, like, you're building the next Disney, and Doodles was really the first project that I thought of that way. And if I were to describe what the 20-year vision or the big picture vision for Doodles is, I would still describe it as like a next generation Disney. I want to get your reaction to that. Is that how you would still describe the vision at the highest level, or what is the big picture here for Doodles in your mind?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say that concept was thrown around a lot at the time, and without really giving too much thought into like what Disney actually is, which is like literally the biggest media company on planet Earth.
Yeah.
But I think like the nature of that saying, I think, was true in that we want to be a world-class IP house, right? With Doodles being the first IP. And I think the definition of IP and the way media is franchised and the way people actually think about brands that have like character-driven storytelling built into it is going to change and evolve over time. And I think Web3 is actually going to lead that evolution. So I would say that is still, somewhat true. I just think how we get there, is probably going to be a little bit different than anybody that's gotten there before. I'd say like we draw comps from a lot of things, like from Disney, from Pokemon, from places like Illumination. Pixar, I think, is a really great comp because Pixar is the kind of company that before Toy Story, the flagship title, ever came out, that technology was being developed for 20 years, right? Like they started it at Lucasfilms even before that. And when Steve Jobs got involved, like they were already developing that tech, but people, or like most people, don't understand anything before Toy Story. But they were trying to sell technology as a service even before Toy Story came out. And then after that, it obviously took off. A Bug's Life, Cars, all these different IPs that were born out of that company that was incubated from technology. Computer animated filmmaking had not existed yet. Toy Story brought it to market, and then it changed the entire thing. We look at blockchain technology as having a similar kind of impact on IP. And we're hoping to develop some of the best tech in the world that is ultimately going to change the way people think about IP. So I'd say it's still close to that. I just think we'll get there probably a little bit differently than they did.
I'm interested in a lot of what you just said, and I want to talk about the Golden Wolf acquisition in a little bit, because I think that feels like something that's a really big deal that maybe people don't fully grasp yet or understand, and it ties into, I think, a number of points you just made. But to go from the big picture to scale it down, I'm curious what the next 2 to 5 years or 1 to 3 years maybe for Doodles looks like. We have Luca Netz in the audience, I think, somewhere. Is Luca still here? I don't know if he's still here, but he came on the podcast recently, and I think for me, I have a really clear story in my head about Pudgies, which is, okay, social media dominance, and that's been Luca's jam for a long time, and merchandise, and then story and lore that they'll bring in the experts for that to make happen, and that means movies or whatever it means sort of after that. I feel like that's a succinct. I'm like, okay, I get it. I have a harder time distilling Doodles down because you guys have your hands on a lot of things. You've got the Pharrell music piece, you have the digital wearables on Flow, and obviously everything you're doing with avatars. You do incredible IRL activations. So can you help me come up with this 1 to 3 year story of what it looks like on your path towards that bigger vision?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you do look at things like Disney, right? Like Disney has Disney Records. That is the biggest music in the world, right? Like Encanto got big because of the soundtrack, and it was a globally distributed soundtrack. So music is a very big part of their DNA. Live events through Disneyland, all these things are big parts of their DNA, and it's not different from ultimately what we're trying to build. I just think the way that we're going about it is kind of novel because brands today and even brands from before are all trying to figure out how to be lifestyle brands in their own right. So how do you get away from just that tentpole moment when you release a video game or a movie and you're kind of driving all the attention and audience to that thing and then building up in between? But for the brands of today, you need to occupy space in people's minds every single day. You need to make people feel like they're part of a community every day. And I think that's going to be the thing that is different, a little bit different about our model. And I think a lot of people are going to adopt this. But how do you create a lifestyle brand where the community actually feels like they're part of that? Like you own a Doodle, you engage in the community, you do all the different things that you can do in this ecosystem. And because of that, you feel like you have that identity, you're part of it, it's a lifestyle, it's all part of how you kind of craft part of your identity. And all of that is side by side with these fictional characters that we're going to develop. So you're not just a passive participant like a lot of people are in IP ecosystems today. You're actually part of it. And maybe you get to see yourself or your Doodle in that media, right? Like when Doodles makes music videos, when Doodles has a show on television, when Doodles creates social content, a lot of that stuff is going to be cast by us licensing, NFTs from holders. So you're going to get all this incredible, access to the worlds that we're building, the live events, the merchandise, the music, all that stuff. But not only are you going to get to consume all that entertainment, you're also potentially going to get to be a part of that entertainment through some of those initiatives. So I'd say the way people are thinking about IP right now is changing. And I'd say that every IP house, even like a Minions or some of these other brands, are trying to license their IP to fashion houses. They're trying to get into different audiences. And what we're trying to do is kind of control that entire ecosystem where the lifestyle brand is a part of it, but we're also developing these characters that people fall in love with all over the world. So I'd say it's kind of parallel paths that we believe are inevitably going to connect.
Is there a need though at this point to prioritize? Those are a lot of paths, and you talk about Disney has Disney theme parks, and they have music, and they have everything. They've also been around for whatever it's been 100 years. They didn't start with all that. They started with the simple animations. How do you think about prioritizing between all the things, or do you feel like you're at a position and have the team to do it all at once?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you raise money so you can really try and grow at a scale that you wouldn't be able to grow if you were just building grassroots. So we raised a big round in August of last year, and that capital went right to work to actually build a lot of this infrastructure out. But at the end of the day, there are really low risk ways to test the water in some of these environments where you could figure out, okay, maybe this is really where we should lean in. We have this flagship retail experience launching this summer I can't mention too much about it, but in a big American city. It's going to be a permanent location, and it's going to transport families and friends and people into the universe of Doodles. They're going to be able to create, they're going to be able to play, it's going to be attached to a retail experience. So if that ends up going well, that could be the kind of thing that we double down on and we bring it to another market or we bring it on tour. All the Golden Wolf acquisition is very much we want to control our own content destiny. We don't want Hollywood to tell us when we're ready to actually get our characters out there, right? We want to be the ones that actually, get our content on social media, get our characters on social media, and then bring the right team in to start developing more long-form content. So Golden Wolf is one of the best creative studios in the world. That is one where we went all in, right? Now there's music that's coming. We went pretty much all in on that one with with bringing Pharrell onto the team. And then there's some other things like merchandise and apparel that we're going to be testing the water on, games, things like that. So we have a very robust team that's built out so we can take a few of these small bets and then really lean in on certain things like I mentioned, the retail experience, the animation. So to me, it's really all about like making calculated moves and then pivoting quickly when you need to. We're going to get a lot of data in the next year.
So you're starting to touch on what my next question was going to be, which is about the team. I think, if I'm not mistaken, like going into 2023 or at the end of last year, y'all were like a team of like 10 or 11 people. Am I right?
Yes.
You're like, we've got this robust team. I'm like, that is nothing. So unless you've hired, a lot in the last 3 months, which you have done some hiring.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a tiny team to be trying to handle all that you're talking about. So where is the team at now, and where do you feel like your core competencies really are? And even a second question to that would be, for you as a leader coming from Billboard, where do you feel like your core strengths really are, and what have you brought from Billboard? That was like 4 questions, but
All right,
you get the point. You get the point.
I'll start. I'll start with the beginning. So yes, we were 10 people, and I think a lot of people have this misconception that like a lot of people means more impact and more work, and it could not be more. It couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, big tech is learning that now. They're like, we fired everybody, and now we're way more productive.
They're very much learning that right now, and I've learned this in my career. I'll start with the second part of your question, and then I'll lead into the first part. But I got to Billboard in 2012 when the company was, it was in the doldrums. It was done. And it was run by print industry executives, music industry executives. The brand was very much a trade magazine focused on the industry and the industry alone. However, they were a magazine really, but they weren't really worried about the print magazine die off the same way that like Hearst and Condé Nast was, because it already died for them when the music industry changed and record labels weren't spending that kind of money anymore. So Billboard, when I got there, was like, it was in single-digit millions in revenue. So it was the kind of thing where it was basically a blank slate. They didn't even know what they had. And I remember looking at their YouTube channel at one point, and I would see videos of Bruno Mars and Justin Bieber and Ed Sheeran doing these like acoustic sessions, racking up 50 million views. And it was so obvious that the music industry weren't the people racking up those views, it was the fans of those artists. So Billboard had better access to talent and the music industry than any media company in the world, because it was the authority, it was the charts, it was the official ranking, and they weren't doing anything with it. So we ended up changing the strategy, starting to focus more on consumer-facing initiatives where we wanted to harness the power of music fandom. And then all of a sudden the social platforms started growing. All of a sudden the website traffic started growing. We started selling tickets to live events. Brands wanted to work with us because we would have millions of people tuning into different video content and social content. And what was cool about that growth, it was at a time when all of our peers were trying to stop the bleeding from people not spending that much on print advertising. So we were actually in a position where we could be incredibly nimble and move with how quickly media was evolving. And that was a really great learning experience for me, because I learned very early on, you can never rely on one source of distribution. Facebook would say, hey, here's $1 million grant for Facebook Live, and then they would literally pull it from you 3 months later after you built a team around it, and now you can't monetize it anymore. That happened 7 different times with every single social platform that we operated on. So we really tried to control our audience and have as many people like in our ecosystem as we possibly could, and that led to actually a sustainable and profitable business in a time where BuzzFeed and Vice and Complex and all these companies were going hyper growth at these outrageous valuations, and they never ended up being able to build a business model that supported that level of growth. So the reason I bring this all up is we had a relatively small team compared to our peers in the space. We were reacting to things a lot more than our peers in the space. And when you have a small, committed, dedicated, and really impactful team, it goes a lot further than having somebody that has 10x your size, but not a clear focus and not true impact makers. So it took us a while to actually find people. it was me and
When you're saying we, are you talking about Doodles now?
Doodles,
Not
yeah. Now I'm
Billboard.
on Doodles. Now I'm on
Okay.
Doodles. So I'm moving to the second part of your question. So, like well, maybe to cap off your question about kind of skill set, and like it's building a team that's high performing. Like that I think is my skill set, because myself, like, I'm a deal person, I'm a growth person, I'm a new business person. I tried to figure out new ways to monetize brands and IP and actually grow audiences. And then when when you're thinking about that in the context of Doodles, like Doodles has this IP that has a head start on so many brands, like in the history of IP. What do you actually need to now super serve that audience? What do you need to super serve your opportunity? You need a team of really strong people. And it takes a long time to hire those people, because if you just try and hit some quota and you hit some quarterly estimate for revenue or whatever you're trying to do, you end up hiring the wrong people, and that takes a lot of money and a lot of time to correct. And that's a challenge that you see in venture-backed businesses, is that there's this pressure for growth at all costs, and you end up having to reel it back pretty quickly. So for us, what we were trying to do is take our time with hiring, even if it meant passing on a few opportunities. So we started the hiring process in August of last year, and we didn't even make a single hire until January, which it took months to find these people. And it wasn't a shortage of people applying. There were thousands of applications. It was like, usually the people that are applying directly for the jobs are not the people that are ultimately best suited for the job. You have to go out and find them, convince them, help them see what you see. And that took some time. But now we're at a point where we have a 20-person team. We have leadership across product. We have leadership across engineering. We have a new head of business and legal affairs starting on Monday. We have a head of marketing. That head of marketing actually controlled at Twitter for Twitter. So she's a really incredible marketing person, really incredible social person. We have business development leadership. We've hired kind of across the board, and now we have this leadership team of real impact makers that can do the work of 5 to 10 people. And I'd rather have that any day than a bunch of kind of low salary people that just need a ton of direction, at least at this stage of our business, considering what the expectations of us are. And then when we acquired Golden Wolf, we brought on 32 new people. So we're sitting at about 50 people now. Wow. With offices in Miami, New York, and London. And it's incredible. The team is truly world class. And the thing with Golden Wolf, I think how significant that acquisition goes over people's heads sometimes.
Not that I know, but I kind of agree.
Yeah, they're one of the most talented animation studios in the world. They work with Epic Games, they work with Disney, they work with Universal, they work with, I almost said the wrong gaming company, they work with Supercell, they work with really big IP companies, and they bring their own attitude, their own spin on all the different work that they do. But now that team of 32 people is the team that's responsible to build out the world of Doodles, to build out the social content experience for Doodles holders, and to actually develop the IP. No one in Web3 has what we have in animation right now.
So I really want to dive into that. So hold on, because I want to circle to two things you said there. One, just maybe quick question is, do you feel like it was even harder to hire in Web3 because you need somebody who has a little bit of familiarity with Web3, but then also has a resume and whatever particular skill set you're looking for? And is that more challenging than you've experienced historically?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the sweet spot for us were people that kind of had experience in both. And it was not very easy to find that. Like our head of finance and operations, he worked at EA, he worked at Verizon, but then he also worked at Gala Games. So he had a lot of experience with crypto and NFTs, and that's kind of the experience across the board. Like Bianca, our head of marketing, she was part of the Web3 team at Twitter. So there was some crossover there. Myself, the only reason I got into Web3 is because I started building product at Billboard. So we were trying to look for that kind of experience, and it is a lot rarer than you think. It's actually really difficult to find those people, but when you do, it's very clear. And there's just, it just takes time. You just have to really suss it out.
The other thing that was interesting is you were saying Doodles has such a leg up relative to the world of trying to build IP. And I'm curious, A, your decision to leave Billboard and go full-time to Doodles, but B, explaining that leg up, is it that you have 5,000 holders, or why do you feel like there was such an advantage with the Doodles over all the IP in the world.
So Doodles, I do believe, has a very unique leg up in Web3 in general, but I think any brand that's emerged out of the PFP craze and brands that are existing in Web3 today have a leg up, because you're talking about businesses that are a year and a half old that have thousands of people that actually give a shit about what they're doing. Like, that doesn't really exist in the realm of startups. So the fact that like you have this feedback loop with community, the fact that, you know, these year-old brands are already developing like hundreds of thousands of, people on social media, like that is a major leg up when it comes to, because think about when Disney started, right? Like, no one gave a crap about what Disney was or who Mickey Mouse was until it got on TV, which was controlled by 4 networks at the time. Now you can kind of create that for yourself. There's a lot more saturation, there's a lot more competition, but still the fact that like you do have 5,000, 12,000, 100,000 collectors that really care about what you're doing, that's a really special thing that can't be taken for granted.
It's so interesting because I think, I've talked to projects where the narrative is almost counter in the sense that, if you go and try and sell Hollywood on a movie, they're so excited. You've got 100,000 followers on Twitter, or you've got, this, that, and the other thing. And then they're like, cool, how many people actually hold this thing? And you're like, 4,000, and it's sort of like, oh, that's not enough. So this is an interesting, but you're right. Like 4,000 is a hell of a lot better than 0 if you're just a cartoonist working in your studio somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, like the reason Hollywood studios, if they're not going to incubate their own IP and they're going to bring in external IP, they're going to want that IP to be something that millions of people care about, because that's the only way that they can monetize, right? Like, no one's going to, and this goes for like any big brand, a toy company, whatever it might be. Like, if you're not bringing millions of people to the table, they're going to have a really hard time figuring out how to make business sense out of it, right? And like, they're operating on periods of 3-month cycles where you need to show investors like growth. And I think in Web3, the special thing is you're getting to build this IP from the inside out, but at the same time start producing all this content that might reach millions of people even this month, or next month, or the month after that. You just have to start testing the water and like kind of taking distribution into your own hands. Like Mr. Beast is a great example. Like, he's not part of some Hollywood factory. Like, he built his own ecosystem, his own world on completely free to play platforms. Cocomelon is another one. They started on YouTube, and now look at them. They're one of the biggest animation companies in the world. So I think the control or the power or the empowerment, whatever you want to call it, is in the hands of the brands right now. And it's all about making your community feel like they're part of this experience as you actually grow, into these other channels. And then at that point, that's really when you get that kind of exponential effect. Like, if you can actually create thousands of followers that really care about your characters and your brand and your story, and you have this nucleus of a community that like loves everything that you do and is engaged and cares about it, that's something that I don't think Hollywood IP really has, and that will be the difference maker eventually.
Your 1,000 true fans from day one.
100%.
Let's talk about the Golden Wolf acquisition, which folks, we've obviously been alluding to it. Folks may be familiar, but Golden Wolf is incredibly talented, well-known within that world animation studio that produces just amazing works. And a couple months ago, you guys announced this acquisition?
January, yeah.
So I'm curious, one of the things that struck me, I think with the press release that came out about it, was it seemed to allude to creating other IP and like creating maybe branded content. How are you thinking about that? Like, are you thinking about having a whole like studio animation model that builds a lot more than just Doodles IP out, and that becomes a whole revenue model for the business? Or like, and what is the timeline of focusing on Doodles first and then maybe expanding it out?
Sure. So the priority right now is Doodles IP, develop it, expand it, grow it, monetize it. Golden Wolf's business is going to continue to exist. Some of their resources are now going to be working on Doodles full time, but some of their resources are going to continue to service the clients that they already have, right? Like, they have stuff coming with Epic Games, they have stuff coming with Adult Swim really soon. But one of the interesting things that they just did is they did the art for an NFT project called Lunar Crush, Nakamoto won, and they're actually doing this like treasure hunt where they're sending Bitcoin to the moon, and whoever gets to it is going to get $1.5 million of worth of Bitcoin.
That's so crypto.
It's
everything
very
about
crypto.
that sentence is
But
just like
the art is insane. It's gorgeous. It's all Golden Wolf, right? So like, they're creating spots for other NFT projects that you're going to learn about pretty soon, like really big name NFT projects. You've seen the work they've done for us, but but they're a creative services company, so they're going to continue that. The third pillar of the business that will start to be developed and launched soon is bringing other people's IP into Web3. And not in the way that a lot of the development and creative studios do it today. It has to be it has to be infrastructure or IP that will help us advance our development.
And
of
by that you
Doodles.
mean Doodles. Okay.
Yeah. So like, this is not a thing, so don't like take it that way. But like, if Lego needed help bringing their world and their universe into Web3, we think Doodles would be a perfect team to think about how to reimagine like child's play on the blockchain, and think about the advantage that would have if Doodles were to partner with Lego one day, right?
So that gives you this leverage when you're in these conversations, like, hey, come build it in Doodle world over, and I'm not saying you're trying to compete like this, but over other side, because we can use Golden Wolf to build out your animation, and you're going to get first in class, whatever animation if you come and build it within Doodle world. So
I think the special thing about us is that we are not held to any one environment or ecosystem, right? Like we showed it with with our brand alone. Like the original collection lives on Ethereum. Doodles 2 is going to live on Flow. Like we are not biased towards any one environment, any one blockchain. So while other side is going to try and bring like everything into their ecosystem, and Fortnite's going to try and bring everything into their ecosystem, Doodles can kind of put people anywhere that they want. And that I think is what's special about us. And we have some of the best blockchain minds in the world internally at Doodles. Like Jordan and Evan were responsible or had a major part to play in the first wave of mainstream NFT adoption with Top Shot and CryptoKitties. And again, with the second wave, like their resume is as good as anybody in Web3. And then our network of developers all over the world, the people that Jordan and Evan have been able to attract, like you're literally talking about people that are like Biarte level kind of thought leader. Biarte is one of the people, Vitalik level like thought leadership in Web3. And that's what we're trying to help people understand in Web 2, because Web 2 and a lot of these big IP houses are not playing the game the right way. And I think it's kind of created some backlash, like you've seen the headlines recently. But like, if you just think about the people that are handling this for Warner Brothers, for all these companies, like it's the consumer products teams. They're just trying to sell like whatever the new action figure type thing is. And until these companies start building Web3 strategy and ultimately the technology that makes it possible into the fabric of their businesses, they're not going to get it right.
Yeah.
And the ones that do are really going to benefit from that long term. It's just going to take a little bit of a different point of view.
I hate to plug this, but I'm going to, which is we just recently had a great episode on Overpriced JPEGs with John Rogers, who's a former Disney exec who's really, I think, just speaks really eloquently about exactly what you're saying, like moving Disney's business from like just consumer products or just seeing it as a way to build interesting content on Disney Plus and really thinking of it more as a theme park. And he speaks about it better than I can, but so go check out that episode on Overpriced JPEGs. So sticking on this Golden Wolf thing for just a moment more, is it like social media content to start, like short form little vignette stories about these characters, or is it starting with animations on YouTube in the Cocomelon or Mr. Beast Spirit, where it's like episodes of something coming out on YouTube?
No, that's exactly right. So the first order of business is Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Snap. And it's all going to be brand building type content. Like if you look at the last few animations that we did, there's the one that we call the touch grass animation, where our main character is like lying in grass and it's kind of like taken over him. And it's got like this like really relaxing music. And then there's this other one of him on a diving board, kind of looks like Los Angeles. He's looking into a portal, and it's just like a really kind of vibey animation. Like we want people to feel the brand. We want people to feel the art. And no one is better at that than Golden Wolf. And the cool thing about Golden Wolf is they've been able to, and this is why I think the Doodles IP is so special and why Burnt Toast is like our modern day version of Dr. Seuss. It's dynamic IP. It can be scaled up, it can be scaled down, it can be aged up and aged down. And when you actually like you look at the difference in the art, like there's like streetwear inspiration in some of it. And Sammy Moore, who's one of the designers from Golden Wolf, is actually doing a lot of the creative direction for Doodles now. You look at his interpretation of the IP, you look at the stuff that Scott creates, it's two completely different things.
Scott being Burnt Toast.
Scott Burnt Toast, excuse me, yeah. It's two completely different things. And any timeless IP has been interpreted multiple ways in the generations that it has existed. So like I always use Spider-Man as a great example. You have live action Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland. You have Into the Spider-Verse, the Sony animation, and then you have Spidey and His Amazing Friends, the kids content on Netflix. Every one of those styles is completely different. Not every IP is that dynamic where you can actually interpret it differently and you could still create incredible art off of it. Doodles is IP like that. Doodles is timeless IP. Golden Wolf taking the reins on the creative is kind of just the first step. But we see the IP evolving in multiple different ways. There's going to be stuff for kids. There's going to be stuff for Gen Z. There's going to be stuff for adults. There's going to be stuff for kind of everybody in between. We see it being a multi-generational brand. But the first step, social-driven content, free-to-play platforms, start to build audience, start to build a feeling for the art. And in tandem and parallel, we're actually developing the long-form strategy right now. So like, what are the rules of the Doodles universe? Who are the main characters? What adventures do they go on? And all of that stuff is actually happening in partnership with people in Los Angeles and in Hollywood. So we look at it as being an always-on content brand that shows up in places where people spend. Where do people spend most of their time?
Social media.
So we are going to be persistent there. And then we're going to have tentpole stuff that launches in the places that people want to just hang back and relax, like their couch watching Netflix or Amazon, and then one day hopefully film.
I have so many more questions. This is what's so hard. Usually, like, somebody like you, I'd do a 2-hour podcast episode and it would be great. And I have to do like 30 minutes and then let you guys have questions. So I want to do just a couple more and then we'll do some audience questions and then we can go back and have fun and people can come up and ask questions.
We could do a follow-up. We could do.
Yeah, we'll do. I'm already talking to your team. We're already going to do a follow-up. Because again, I have too many more questions to fit into this one event. But I want to talk about a couple specific recent announcements and maybe even in this context, which is, there's been a lot of frustration around Doodles from the community itself, from the broader Web3 community. And I actually feel like even in the last week and a half, it feels like that's starting to turn a little bit and the sentiment is starting to shift bit more positive than frustrated. Yeah. How did you understand that frustration? Like what do you think was happening there? And then what do you think is at the root of this turnaround or how do you describe what the turnaround is hopefully going to look like?
Sure. I think it really came down to just relentless prioritization. And unfortunately, the whole building in silence thing was something that we weren't even fully aware was happening. And then the overwhelming feedback started to come in and it just became a thing where we really needed to put more emphasis on that at a time when we weren't. We were passing on things that would have been like small wins for the community. Like there were brand partnership opportunities that came to us in November or October of last year that we didn't end up going through with because we didn't think they supported the bigger vision, but they would have been small wins for the community, especially at a time when the whole space was down. So we were heads down, building as much as we possibly could, not worrying about a lot of the noise that exists in like very public industries like this. And unfortunately, I don't think that was really the right move because it made our community feel a little bit neglected and it made them feel like we didn't have their best interests at heart. We're here working our asses off, like building something that we hope everybody can be proud of one day. But if your community doesn't feel like they're part of it, it doesn't really matter because you're going to lose them anyway. So I don't want to say we came to terms with that. We just started to really put that priority towards the forefront of our strategy. And that's really what you've seen the last couple weeks. We want to make the community feel like they're as important as they are as in our internal meetings. We want the community to feel like, like they're part of this thing because it's really, and it's a lot more simple than I think we were trying to make it. Like I think we overthink things and overanalyze things a lot. And all the community wants is to feel heard. All the community wants is to feel like they're part of it. And we're taking strides to create that outcome. And we've seen a lot of positive sentiment the last couple of weeks. So yeah, it's gonna be a continued thing, and we're gonna continue to iterate on it. We announced a revamp and a reimagination to the Doodle Bank today.
I want to talk about that. There's also been some comms blunders. There was some negligence. There's also frustrations, I think, around how the team has maybe communicated outwards.
Look, like what I'll say about that is that we're all human. We're building in a time in an industry which is kind of like unprecedented, and we do things very differently than other projects. And just because we don't believe in every, like, it's tough getting criticized publicly.
Yeah.
And I think like you're working so hard to actually deliver value, to actually build like long-term sustainability. And when people are critical vocally of you, it becomes difficult. However, we signed up for that. It's part of the gig, and we all knew that going into it. So we need to be the example. We need to lead. And yeah, there's been some comms blunders, but we will be defined by the way we react to these things and not what's happened in the past. And I hope what people have seen in the last couple of weeks is that we are taking everything really seriously, and we are actually trying to be a brand for the community and make sure people are heard, and we're not, we're learning.
Yep. So let's close this, and then we'll open it up to the audience with two specific pieces of news. I think the second thing I can say about, you've publicly said the 100,000 cap is being lifted on.
Yeah, but I think that got misconstrued a little bit today.
Okay,
but
so that's good. So we can talk about it. We can clarify any misconstructions that may have occurred. Okay,
Yeah.
So two things. So this Doodle Bank, the revamp of the Doodle Bank, which again, I'm assuming folks know, but I mean, millions of dollars exist in this Doodle Bank. This has been from the very earliest, over 5 million, since the very earliest days of Doodles. A percentage of all mints and secondary have always flowed to this Doodle Bank treasury, and it's been sort of this pool of money that's been a little bit like, exactly what should it go to? I think you guys have wanted to be really thoughtful about not just like throwing it out to any community member, or, whatever. You'll speak to it better than I will. So tell us the news that has come out about that.
Okay, so Doodle Bank, just kind of quick history lesson on it. Doodles was pretty much set up as a DAO, like from the very beginning. Every single dollar from secondary sales, a percentage of that went into the Doodle Bank. The Doodle Bank is a community fund where you can it was actually the thing that funded the expansion of Doodles in the early days. Community had a vote. You own a Doodle, you can vote. And, and ultimately, like, things got passed, like people being able to do live events, people being able, like Doodles actually being able to expand its team. And that way people felt like they were part of the roadmap, they were part of the journey. Web3 has evolved, NFTs has evolved. So we want to evolve the Doodle Bank with it. And basically what we announced today is this whole new reimagination of the Doodle Bank, where it's really going to align, it's going to be clear that incentives are now aligned with the company and the actual holder of the NFTs, specifically the original collection. So we are establishing a community council, and it might seem like, comms feedback is really bad, like just slap a community council on it. I see that meme everywhere. We've actually been developing this for months. I've been trying to put it together since August.
And you guys have Kai Turner, who's amazing, who's
yes,
been,
Kai's
I know, very
fantastic.
involved in the Doodle Bank, so I can attest to that.
I actually, Austin actually turned me down for a job several times.
Well, I was going to shout out Austin,
summer.
our friend Austin Hurwitz, who, it was like 6 months, I think you guys were trying to recruit him.
It took a very, very long time. So I was like, well, if you don't want to, come work for us, let's do the community council together. Let's start that up. And, I ended up getting through to him, we're very thankful for that. But the Doodle Bank, the community council, basically, we are going to create an opportunity for the community to actually get funding from the Doodle Bank to do a few different things. One, entrepreneurs that want to build businesses that will benefit the Doodles community, that will benefit themselves, they'll be able to access this fund to actually deploy capital. And when that capital does get deployed, when proposals do go through, that $100,000 cap on your NFT will automatically be lifted.
And so for context, there was always, for Doodles, if you held a Doodle, you couldn't commercialize your Doodle beyond $100,000. Versus other, like Bored Apes, very famously, right? You can go do whatever you want with your ape, and you can go make a whole business out of it. And Doodles was always, relative to other players in the space, a little bit more restrictive about that, saying you can't build a business that's making more than $100,000 with a Doodle. And now that's changing.
Context for that, even, kind of dating back for why the decision kind of still upholds with that. If you automatically lift your, $100,000 cap, you open Disney, Netflix, and all these other companies up to just go buy a bunch of Doodles, and then, basically create what you want to create with them on their own. So we're protecting ourselves from IP people that aren't going to come in and just buy a bunch of doodles and do something on their own if our IP gets enough heat. So that's one. Two, like quality control.
That's still protected because this is that cap is lifted in a very distinct way within Doodle Bank where they have to get permission, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also think this concept of just like pure commercialization on your NFTs is something that's a little bit overinflated. Like everybody thinks, oh, I own this NFT, I'm going to go create this like $1 million enterprise. Like it's actually not that easy. And in reality, what's going to happen is the big players are going to come in like the Nelk Boys and Kingship with Universal Music Group. They're the ones that are going to build the big businesses because they're going to create a strategy to monetize IP in different ways. And by the way, I'm actually not knocking that model. I'm just saying why it's not right for us. If an IP has all these creators that are building businesses around their IP, that's incredible. That's more exposure for the brand. It's great for the company. It's great for everybody involved. But what we're saying with the Doodle Bank and taking a different approach is not only are we going to lift that $100,000 cap, we're going to fund you. Like Disney Accelerator Program does this. Y Combinator does this. We have some of the most talented people in the world in Web3 in our community, like high net worth individuals, executives at big companies, small business owners, just like people with real ideas. So if you can come to the table, evangelize the community, get the community council on board, not only are you going to get your, kind of freedom to build what you want, we might even help you build that into our roadmap and you can, tap into some of our resources. We're going to help you with your ideas. Like we've been doing this kind of behind the scenes with some of the creators in our ecosystem. So that's like the entrepreneurial track. There's the creator track where we have a lot of creators in the Doodles ecosystem that, they create incredible content, like people like NFT Sushi, JKB, TGID, like all these people are such incredible members of the community and they need help with some direction. I'm like, how do you do what Carly does, right? Like how do you put a tour? How does JKB go from being like a weekly Twitter space to actually having infrastructure to go out and get sponsors, to actually have the right equipment? We're going to have the Doodle Bank help with that. And then we're also going to have the Doodle Bank help with actually driving the infrastructure around our rewards and loyalty program, where people that come up with different business ideas are actually going to be in service of making sure that rewards and loyalty program is actually delivering value back to the NFT holder. So there's basically 3 prongs. The community council is going to be an extension of our team. They're basically going to be the bridge between the community and Doodles. They're going to have diverse skill sets. We truly want it to be inclusive, not just like, in terms of the kind of like demographics, but just like diversity and, the kinds of people that are actually like the different types of skill sets, right? Right. So the community council is going to be 5-person council. Community is going to have feedback. We're going to put that together over the next month. And we think this is ultimately going to lead to funds getting deployed quicker. It's been a big, there's been a lot of friction with actually getting like votes to quorum, with the existing Doodle Bank. But this is hopefully going to bear some like really, really incredible businesses and really great things for the Web3 community at large.
Love it. All right, with that, we can clap or whatever. We're gonna turn it over to you all.
Thank
so
you.
we have, oh gosh, you know what? Zach, can you come help? Maybe my fiance's here. So I get to call on him at a moment's notice. So if you have a question, raise your hand. We've got mics here. We can maybe pass mics to folks. All right, I saw you first. So Zach, if you just because you're closer, pass the mic to that lady right there in the back with the Nouns glasses. You probably don't know what that means, do you, Zach?
Sick.
Love it. And then Zach, you can come bring the other one over here for the next question.
So I do have a question for both of you. So first question to you. I loved DoodlePutt, and I am the Nounish professor, by the way.
You're a Nouns professor?
I am the Nounish professor.
A Nounish professor. Love it.
Rough order.
I wish the camera could see you, but alas.
Sorry. So DoodlePutt was fabulous. And when I was there in that experience, it kept seeming like an MVP for a potential franchise. So yes or no on that. And then Carly, when Nouns on Overpriced JPEGs?
Oh, okay. Well, you go first, Julian.
Okay. Yes, I mean, whether DoodlePutt is going to be the thing that travels and becomes its own franchise, maybe not, but concepts of DoodlePutt, live experience, flagship retail, that's coming this summer. And you're going to start to see aspects of the things that got people excited about DoodlePutt, like in real life, in a city for an extended amount of time. I think a lot of a lot of what we were doing was trying to get the brand name out there, bring these really cool immersive experiences to cultural tentpoles like South by Southwest and Art Basel, and that was great to get the brand out there. But now you actually want to start driving real connections to people, and the only way that you can do that is more sustained presence. So the DoodlePutt activations was very cool, but what we're launching this summer is going to be incredible. It's going to be very
Even
doodly.
cooler.
Yes, yeah, it looks great.
Right
There's
down the block
some
from
tags
us.
over it, but it still looks good.
My answer is quick, which is truly let's talk. I would love to have Nouns on. Yeah. The people I respect most in this space all just like bow down to Nouns. So anytime. Okay. Love it. Look for the lady with the Nouns glasses. It's very easy. Okay.
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, so I'm a doodle holder. I think I've been a holder for over a year, I think. I just want to ask, as a doodle holder, I love my PSP. I use it in all my social media. I'm attached to it, and I just want to know what could we expect 1 to 2 years from now, and I just want to hear, from you, what can I expect, from the company, and so I can, have that experience.
Yeah,
As a holder?
Yes, of course.
Okay. He's been a holder for a year, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So we're expanding the IP. The NFT holder, the community is going to be part of that journey every step of the way. What we're building is a gamified collecting ecosystem that connects to everywhere people engage with entertainment experiences. So when we do retail, when we do animated content, when we make music videos, when we launch new merch, when we have collaborations, the NFT is going to be connected to all those experiences. And every time we do something new, there's going to be clear benefits for the people that own the NFTs versus people that are kind of coming in fresh. So that is what you can expect as a holder. And I don't want to sit up here and guarantee every single thing that's coming, but access to live events that we're part of, access to new things that we're going to be launching from a brand partnership perspective, different kind of access when you go to our flagship retail experiences. And then whenever we do new NFT drops, there's going to be certain things that the NFT holders get that other people don't get. So as our brand develops, the identity that the NFT holder has and the value that the NFT holder has as we scale, that will hopefully get more and more valuable because there's going to be more things that person actually has access to as the business gets bigger and bigger.
Dare we say utility?
Utility, sure. Yeah. Utility means different things to different people, but we're trying to cover all of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Other question? All right here. Great.
Hi, Zoran, founder of Minted Teddy, and hugely inspired by Doodle's execution, artwork team, everything. And I'm just wondering, do you see in your growth strategy acquisition of other NFT projects as possible part of it?
The question for the recording was, do you see acquisitions of other NFT companies as part of the Doodles growth strategy?
Potentially. I think, I draw that comparison to Pixar and Illumination as much as I can. And we want Doodles to be our Toy Story or our Minions, but eventually you're going to need to scale beyond that if things continue to be successful. So that could come in the form of us incubating our own new IP. It could come in the form of us acquiring other IP, partnering with other established IP. So I'd say all of that stuff is on the table.
Do we have other questions? Okay, right here in the front.
Hey, Julian. Thanks for being here, and Carly, of course, for hosting. But I wanted to get your views on CCO projects and their importance in the NFT space, and then how
Speaking of
Doodles
nouns.
thinks about, the nouns. Shout out to Noggles over there. But and then how Doodles views integrating with CCO projects in general in the future.
It's something we've talked about a lot. I think, Jordan loves the idea of what we call a vampire attack, where you can, you could basically build an NFT project that is kind of centered around your core central IP. But for people that have CCO projects, they can bring those collaborations into it, but from a community perspective where you don't actually need to go do a deal with that other community. So I'd say that is stuff that we always think about. Doodles 2 is a platform where basically our audience is going to be able to create the doodle of their dreams. And it's kind of the first thing in Web3 where you're going to be able to have a base level NFT, and then the wearables that you put on top of your doodle are also going to be their own unique NFTs. So people, the ultimate asset is going to be like 7 different NFTs combined to create this one thing. Right now, it's kind of what we call inline, so only Doodles branded wearables and merchandise and things like that. But eventually, you're going to see some collaborations. Actually, in April, there's a really big collaboration that we're going to announce. But after that, you could start to potentially see things where we integrate other NFT projects into it. It's definitely something that's interesting to us. So I'd say there's nothing specifically planned, but it's something that we talk about frequently.
Let's maybe do one more, and then we can, if there is one more. Yeah, over here? Okay, great.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for coming out. This has been such an awesome event. I've never met anyone in Web3 in real life, so this is sick.
Yay! That's so fun.
So big question is, obviously based on recent conversation and this conversation, Doodles is not an NFT project or only an NFT project. How does Doodles look at helping onboard more mainstream into Web3 from like an education understanding point of view, or are they really not focusing on that as much as creation and being a media company as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think our guy Luca over here gave a great tweet earlier today or yesterday that you can't rely on all these big companies to create the adoption for you. You have to go out and do it. And that should resonate with every single creator in Web3. If we wait for Hollywood to tell us that we're good enough, if we wait for all these companies to integrate NFT technology to actually bring our brands forward, I mean, it's not going to be any different than it was before. There's going to be gatekeepers, and that's going to be it. So for us, building via the tools that exist today, diversifying your content output, that's incredibly important, and you're seeing some of the biggest IP in the world be born that way today. Like, I love using CoComelon. Like, if you go to an airport, chances are you're gonna see a parent with an iPhone out with CoComelon because they can't live without it. But CoComelon doesn't just exist on YouTube, it's on Netflix, they have merchandise, they're at Target, they're everywhere, right? So for us, we're building outward from the collecting ecosystem that we've cultivated. And if we can build an IP that people care about everywhere, and you have an easy onboarding experience to actually funnel them into Web3, most of the time without them even knowing it's happening to them, that we think is the way to educate people. And it's why we went multi-chain. There was there's a lot of feedback about why we brought Doodles 2 to Flow. And the whole reason we did that is, one, it gives people in our community a great experience to do more things with your NFT, to actually create the NFT and the doodle of your dreams. But more importantly, when we do create this social content and people do want to get into Web3 or they want to be part of your ecosystem in some way, you need a familiar and frictionless onboarding experience and something that's not intimidating, like my brother-in-law, he's my brother-in-law and he gets hacked all the time. It's insane. He literally can't figure it out. But it's true. So we need to figure out a way to get people in, educate them, and they will be part of your brand. Some people might just buy a t-shirt. Some people might just follow you on social media. That's fine, but they're there. And now you have an opportunity as a brand to educate people and onboard people. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen through sustained communication, all while the technology and the infrastructure on the other end is getting better and better and better and more user-friendly. A lot of the narrative in our space right now is dominated by the protocols that things are on and the fact that they're called NFTs. And it's kind of silly because nobody talks about the fact that Instagram is built on Python. Nobody talks about the fact that what you watch online is an MP4. This is just technology that works. No one actually cares unless it works, especially when you scale to that level. So all these different protocols do things for different reasons, and some of them do things that suit our interests, some of them don't. And that's really how we look at it. So at the end of the day, the more we can make the back end invisible, the easier of a chance we're going to have to make people truly integrated. And then the Web3 strategy is the thing that shines. The tech is just what makes the strategy possible.
Okay, great.
Thanks for having us, Carly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You've been so generous.
Thank you
so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.